that you make this trade, and we came up with 4. One of them is that you just absolutely had to have Yusuf Nurkic. I don't totally buy that. I mean, if you trade DA, then you obviously need to get somebody like that back. One of them was Matt Ishbia wanted to save money. I don't think anybody believes that. So then it was either Deandre Ayton wanted out, or somebody on his team was like, we can't win a championship with this guy. Or maybe it's a combination of the two. Am I missing anything? Are there any other options?
Maybe the front office felt that way too, that had decision makers there felt that way. But yeah, I think that this is a clear, the column I have on ArizonaSports.com in the headline, I'm calling it selling low. Like, this is selling low on DeAndre. Now, is this the lowest his value in the league will go? I think the Suns are betting on that not being the case right now, certainly. But I think all of us in this room can agree, no matter how we feel about DeAndre Ayton, there's a decent chance he goes to Portland and kills it, and the Suns look foolish for doing this rather quickly. There's also a chance that it just doesn't really work out in Portland there as well, and all of the flaws, inconsistencies in DeAndre's game that have plagued him over the last 5+ years are better off being somewhere else, and the Suns benefit from some addition by subtraction here. I land somewhere in the middle on that. I'm not exactly sure. I've been thinking about this ever since Gambo's reporting a week ago, and I'm still not exactly sure on where I land in terms of, is this a good trade or a bad trade for the Phoenix Suns? I'm somewhere in the middle, but clearly I think my biggest takeaway, Luke, is that they are betting on, like, what I called it in the piece is, like, they might get borderline high on the court from the breaths of fresh air, apparently, that they're going to feel now, not having to wonder if their franchise center is going to be locked in on a night-to-night basis.
Kevin, why now? Why do this right now?
I think they were just trying, man. And it's weird that this summer happened where, we got reports like, okay, Frank Vogel's locked in on trying to help DA, but I think they were just trying to make it work with him. It wasn't even just selling him low. It was like, well, if we're stuck with him, we have to, like, build him up. We have to have our coach build him up. And I think they were just in a bad position and probably put a date on, like, okay, we don't want to go into training camp with this guy, whether it's him being disgruntled, whether it's us being tired of dealing with his inconsistencies. I just think that they put a soft date on this, and it lined up with, look, Dame being out there, like even Buddy Hield, and you go down the list of James Harden to some degree, although I don't know how that trade's going to happen. But I think they were very smart in how they waited this out because, look, they do get numbers as far as guys you can maybe trust in a playoff rotation for this. So, yeah, Nurkic is not Ayton. It's a downgrade, but you do have numbers, and I think, like, they landed there where it's like, okay, we'll take numbers for it over, quality starting centers.
So what are your thoughts on Dame and Giannis right now, guys? Those two guys playing together. This is a different angle to come in on this, and I know we're trying to parachute in on 30,000 feet, but your thoughts immediately when you think of Dame and Giannis playing together.
Well, that was part of the conversation I saw instantly happening, and some people reacting, and the Suns facilitating a move like this because clearly, actually, This is very difficult for me because I am so busy being the lead, like, fan club guy for Drew Holiday that I need to go be busy in my co-vice president chair that I hold in the Damian Lillard fan club. So it's difficult for me, and Drew means a ton to what Milwaukee does and what they have been doing. Now, if you're going to
watch Drew all the time, you have to watch DA again, so just be aware of this.
I think Drew's not done moving yet, honestly. Okay. I think he's probably going to keep going. That makes the most sense for him, certainly. I hope so, for our sake. Like, I like what Portland is doing, but I hope that for his sake and for our sake as basketball fans, we get to see him on a contender still. With that being said, the biggest weakness, and we saw in the 2021 finals when the Suns came up short, it was Chris Middleton's shot creation, and the ball kept going to him over and over again, and people were like, why isn't Giannis getting the ball? Well, they need shot creation in those moments, and Damian Lillard is a shot creator, to say the least. I think that with trade chatter coming up, I think he's maybe become the most underrated player in the league. I don't know why people aren't acting like he's a surefire top 10 player in the league. I'd have to sit down and look at it. Obviously, my brain is going through the Suns side of this, but I have to imagine Milwaukee's the favorite now with them. I don't know what their depth chart looks like specifically right now, but man, that is a lethal force. Should it have concerned the Suns? No. You need to do what's best for you. You can't worry about how it helps others or hurts others, whatever. You got to do what's best for you, and clearly that's what the Suns were doing, and they should have done. But, yeah, there was a mystery team within the mystery team, Luke. Who would have thought?
Yeah. There's always a mystery. You're starting to sound like Aaron Rodgers. Kevin, what do you think about the Bucks here real quick?
I I think you should, if you're the Suns, have a little thought about it. I mean, that team's really good offensively right now. Just the floor, like the shape of the floor changes with Dame on that team. Kind of like we've talked about Eric Gordon. You bring it vertical, and now you have Giannis setting a screen for him and rolling downhill at full speed. That man.
Yeah.
And that guy who can shoot it from 40 feet out. I mean, offensively, it's really amazing. I do wonder. I'm trying to think of their roster right now of how that roster will work as far as perimeter defense, because like we watched Drew play Book in the finals. That guy is probably top perimeter defender in the league.
I'm not sure if Milwaukee wins that series if they don't have Drew Holiday.
Yeah, so it's obviously a change of pace for them. It's going to be a good team, but yeah, that is a little question mark. But I mean, it's excitement.
But for me, I think immediately about the mix inside that locker room with Drew Holiday and Deandre Ayton. That is the first thing that I think of, to your point, in regard to maybe he's still on the move. I find that very, very interesting because I don't see that being a good mesh. That's just me.
Yeah, on paper, you look at it and you say the Blazers lost this trade for sure in terms of the return that they got. But I don't think we know the return yet again, because I think Drew's on the move. And what they get for Drew, who, by the way, is coming off the best season of his career. He was like an all-NBA player. He was phenomenal last year. He's still one of the best guards in the league, in my opinion, considering everything that he does on the floor. So I'm really curious to see where he goes, because I think that's a part of this conversation that comes next is like, is there a team in the West that could get Drew Holiday? That's where we start to talk about like, oh man, what have the Suns done? They formed a giant in Milwaukee, and then they helped one of these teams, because I think the overlaying theme for me of the offseason, and we talked about this a lot on the shows where I was with you, Luke, is like, yeah, the West didn't really get that much better on paper. Denver got a little worse. They lost Bruce Brown. They lost Jeff Green. These other teams, like the Lakers, did get better. Some of these teams had nice off seasons, but they didn't turn into a behemoth. But Drew's really good, man. I'm fascinated to see where he winds up, because I don't think we're done yet.
Yeah, it's going to be, since we're on this, it is going to be interesting if the Suns end up making the finals and meeting the Bucks, and DeAndre Ayton has his fingerprints all over that. Or, to your point, Kellen, if the Suns end up playing some team in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs and they have to deal with Drew Holiday, and DA still has his fingerprints all over that. Kevin, I want to ask you this, because Media Day is coming up on Monday, and I'm sure they weren't like, we got to get a trade done before Media Day. But Media Day last year, DA sounded like he was miserable to be here, and then all of a sudden he was like, no, wait, I do like it here. Not just Media Day, but in your mind, how important was it to get this trade done before the season if you were going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think implementing new schemes, defenses is super important, and especially how Frank Vogel operates on that Lakers team that he's most recently on. I mean, he's going to use things more piecemeal, where it's, Nurk's not going to play, DA minutes probably. He's going to play 20, 25 minutes. He's not the best defender, but he can be very effective and be a great screener and all that kind of stuff. Vogel's going to have to learn, like, what defenses he can use with which combinations of guys, and I think that's a lot different than the Suns have been the past few years, where it's like, we know who's coming off the bench, we know who's starting. So I think from that perspective, just learning your pieces, how you're going to fit these things together is super important. So I think there is a lot of value in having camp, having preseason, and having this full months plus to get to that point where you start the season in a good spot.
The one thing I continue to come back to is, if you were going to trade DeAndre Ayton straight up for Nurkic, there would be a lot of people that would say DeAndre Ayton is a better player. Why are you getting just Nurkic for DeAndre Ayton if it was a straight up trade, okay? And I think you could build that argument. There's no doubt about it. But I will say this, man, right here. I think Nurkic is twice as physical as DeAndre Ayton will ever be. And that is what I think they're after more than anything else. Maybe not a great defender, maybe not the best defender, but a guy that is going to be physical more than anything else. How many times did we hear Monty Williams talking about force and playing with force? That's what he wanted him to do. And he's on the move because he didn't.
This also kills any possibility of DA getting traded to Detroit, which we were all secretly hoping would happen, even though it never was going to. All right, Kellen Olson, Kevin Zimmerman are going to stick around when we come back. Okay, the Suns traded DeAndre Ayton. What exactly did they actually get back in the trade? We'll dive deep into that next. It's Wolf and Luke on Arizona Sports, the local sports leader.
Can't get behind the wheel without plugging your phone into your car to use CarPlay or Android Auto? You can tell Siri or Google to play Arizona Sports while plugged in and stream Arizona Sports live from your Arizona Sports app. Hey Siri, hey Google, play Arizona Sports.
There are plenty of reasons why Earnhardt Ford has been a trusted name in the Valley since 1951. Hi, it's Vince Marotta. One big reason is great deals on vehicles that are built Ford proud. Right now at Earnhardt Ford, you can save up to $6,000 off of MSRP on 2023 Ford F-150 XLT models, plus available 3.9% APR financing for 66 months with Ford FlexBuy. How about up to $7,000 off MSRP on 2023 Ford Edge models, plus available 0% APR financing for 66 months again on a Ford FlexBuy. And that same great 0% financing is available for 66 months on 2023 Ford Mustang Mach-E's. All offers require approved credit. Some exclusions may apply. See dealer for details and qualifications. Offers end October 2nd, 2023. Take advantage of these offers now. Earnhardt Ford in Chandler, right off the I-10 north of Ray Road, or online 24/7 at earnhardtford.com. Shop local, support local, because local matters at Earnhardt Ford, and that ain't no bull.
Sarah Cazell here. If your AC is over 10 years old and you are dreading the inevitable replacement, fret no more. Just call my friends at Parker & Sons. This month, Parker has state-of-the-art, high-efficiency heating and AC systems for $99 a month. That's just $3 a day. Think about $3. You can't even get a cup of coffee for that price anymore. And with the yearly utility savings as much as $1,000, it really pays to act now. Call Parker today at 602-2, then REPAIR for Parker & Sons.
Protecting your estate with a living trust could ensure the people you love will be protected when you pass away. Because if you don't have a living trust, all of your assets, including your house, your bank accounts, and your investments, could end up in Arizona probate court for years and could cost your estate tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Even if you have a will, your estate could end up in probate. But you could avoid this by getting a living trust from RJP Estate Planning, who's helped over 35,000 Arizona families since 1995. Call today for 65% off on your living trust. You'll have peace of mind knowing your assets will be seamlessly passed on.
If you're 60 or over, you can save 65% on a living trust. Call RJP Estate Planning at 480-576-5457. That's 480-576-5457. Call by September 29th. 480-576-5457.
Everyone's favorite season is here. It's the time of year when you can score big with MidFirst Bank. Get $300 just for opening a new MidFirst checking account. Plus, register your MidFirst debit or credit card and enter to win a $1,500 shopping spree. Don't miss out on Score More season at MidFirst Bank. No purchase necessary. Offer ends December 31st. Visit midfirst.com/GameAZ for details. MidFirst Bank, member FDIC.
Wolf and Luke. Arizona Sports, the local sports leader.
You know, I'm watching a video right now. Kellen Olson, Kevin Zimmerman joining us. By the way, we're still doing the show instead of giving you the D-backs game live. It is available on ESPN 620 right now. They lead 3-0 in the bottom of the fourth. But we're doing the show live because Deandre Ayton just got traded in the last 45 minutes to the Portland Trail Blazers. I'm watching a video here, guys, of... and I forgot this happened. Giannis taking Dame at the All-Star draft over Drew Holiday, and LeBron being like, hey, what's that all about? And now Dame is on the Milwaukee Bucks, and Drew Holiday, at least for the moment, is on the Portland Trail Blazers. The Suns, in case you are just joining us, they get Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson back in the trade. And so, Kellen, I want to start here. They already had a full roster. Where are you going to fit all four of these guys? Because that, to me, says at least two guys that were already here are going to be the odd men out.
Yeah, I think that it was such an open competition in the first place. Like, when we were in the second week of July, how many guys did you have penned in? Like 6?
Yeah.
5?
Yeah.
So there's just
with
more,
a bunch of other guys just kind of there to try out.
Now there's just more guys to try out.
Yeah.
And I think that's an added benefit for sure. I do think that if we're looking at it through the lens of free agency and how it all went out, Grayson Allen is almost as good of a pickup as any of those that they got.
Okay.
You would not be able to sign Grayson Allen on the minimum, I do not believe. He has established himself as a solid wing in the league in Milwaukee. Nasir Little is more of getting him a second look and getting him in a winning environment and seeing how much his energy, length, athleticism goes. I was watching a lot of tape over him in the last week as I started to hear rumbles of this and started to get to know his game a little bit more, and he's been doing some encouraging stuff in terms of his offensive game that I'll have more on later today on ArizonaSports.com. But I do think that those two guys are, if like we're breaking those 14 players or however many it is now, right, like 11 into which of these like guys in the pecking order would you guess in terms of rotation minutes? They would be in the upper half for sure. So they did okay there in that regard. Keon Johnson, more of a guy where he was selected in the late first round. We haven't seen much from him yet in terms of him producing anything in the NBA. And as Kevin was talking about in the newsroom, they still have some roster spots to figure out here, so they're not done making moves yet. They can't be legally done making moves yet, so something else is coming, whether it's waiving players, making another trade, whatever happens, we'll wait and see. It's probably going to include second-round picks or draft swaps probably, Kevin, knowing the stuff that we've been learning about and going through the last couple of months with how creative the front office has been getting. But I do like that they were able to get more guys sort of in that mix. But I think the main takeaway here is, Luke, that a lot of people listening right now, when they were theorizing and thinking about Deandre Ayton trades, remember when I did the mock offseason stuff in June, and everyone's reaction to it was, that sucks. And I was like, well, yeah, man, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm shooting for realistic stuff here. I'm sorry. And there were a lot of people in the last couple of months, we're talking about Caleb Martin, OG Anunoby, all these names. It was never going to be those names for Deandre Ayton. It just never was going to be. I don't think you were ever going to get the type of return where you get a starting caliber center in Nurkic, and then you get a guy who is like your clear-cut fifth guy. That is not what they got here, and if you were expecting that, you're probably rather disappointed with this return, but it's fine.
It's funny you say that because even just looking at comments on social media last night, the way I saw a lot of Suns fans rationalizing a potential Nurkic trade was that they would get OG Anunoby in the deal somehow as well, and they obviously did not. So, Kevin, I'll go to you on this one. I mean, Kellen just gave reasons why some of these guys are going to be upgrades over guys they already had here, but in your mind, is that enough of a reason to make this trade where you can upgrade from maybe the 9th guy on your bench to the 7th guy on your bench?
Yeah, I mean, to Wolf's point, it's like how do you get rid of Deandre Ayton? It kind of looks like you had to. Whatever reason that was, that's still what it looks like to me. That's selling low. But I will say, Grayson Allen has played productive minutes, double-digit score for a good team in the Bucks the last few years. But does he play over Eric Gordon? Is there redundancy there? Yeah, but we were starting this offseason talking about depth, right? And so now you have less worry there. The guards look good. Like, you have Goodwin, those two guys behind Book and Beal. That's 5 pretty solid guys you can trust. Nasir Little, I think, to some degree, is a little more on the Bull level where he hasn't exactly proven himself. I think he has a little more than Bull as a defensive ace kind of guy, but there's still question marks getting second look. I think you said that. So there are reasons to like those two pieces. I'm surprised they got more than one extra piece on top of Nurkic. So I think, look, you get a starting center, you get 2 guys who can be in the rotation. Maybe one doesn't pan out, but I think from my expectations of knowing DA's trade value wasn't super high, I think that's good, decent, okay.
One part we haven't discussed yet is, I think, ultimately in April, if Nurkic is healthy and playing, and injuries have been a huge problem for him the last couple of years, if he's healthy and playing and one of these 3 other guys is in your playoff rotation, I think this is a win. But those are ifs. Both of them are ifs. Nurkic's health is an if, and one of these 3 guys panning out in the rotation is an if. Then again, DeAndre was perpetually an if.
And that's what I got to say here. I mean, honestly, right now, it's amazing to see what is transpiring and the way this team is taking on already a new feel to me right now, based on the fact that Deandre Ayton is no longer going to be in the center. He's not going to be in the center of all of this anymore, right? He's gone. We all know Deandre Ayton and what his issue was. His issue was effort. Guys, that is, I mean, honestly, ultimately, when you can't do it consistently, try to respect somebody like that. Even at work right now, honestly. Ask yourself, if you've got somebody who doesn't consistently come to work and work hard, do you got a lot of respect for that guy? I don't think you do. I think that's just natural as a human being. If you go to work and one guy's always working 10 times harder than the other guy, I just think it's human nature now, and now DA is going to be out, and now Frank Vogel's coming in his first year as a head coach, a guy that is a defensive-minded head coach. And now we're looking at this roster. This is going to be the most competitive training camp the Phoenix Suns have had on their roster to make their team probably in, 15 years?
Yeah, maybe even longer. I mean, you're basically training camp now is, okay, try out to make this team. Oh, by the way, this team has Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. So if you make this team, you might win an NBA title, too. That's a pretty nice setup. That's a pretty nice carrot to dangle out there. I want to build on what you guys both just said, Kellen, specifically with Nurkic. Is this a guy for fans driving around right now? They're like, yeah, okay, he's kind of inconsistent. How much of the inconsistency is just his inability to stay on the floor? Like the scenario you just painted right there, if he is playing in a playoff game, are you confident you're going to get something? If he's suiting up and he's going out there in warm-ups, we know what we're getting. Whereas with DA, it was like you didn't know what you were getting even if he was out there.
It's part of it for sure, but look, a lot of our job is tea leaves and looking back on things. And when the Suns signed Josh Okogie last summer, I was like, the guy who does what Mikal Bridges does. That doesn't make sense. You already have Mikal Bridges. What's going on there? And then when they signed one center and two centers, if you count Bol Bol as a center, a third center, it's like, it's a lot of centers. What's going on here? And tea leaves, I think they've been trying to deal him for a while now. That's just my opinion based on reacting to what I'm seeing. I'm not reporting anything. No sources stuff on me. Don't throw that all over me. The man coming up in an hour and 38 minutes. We'll have much more on that in that regard, but I do not.
I'm just us in like an hour.
Reckless speculation is what I'm here for.
Reckless,
gosh darn it, and that's it.
Get in line, killer.
So, but to Wolf's point, I think that Eubanks was the one guy to me where I watched him and I was the most impressed by him out of all the guys that came in terms of the tape and what I was expecting and what I'd seen from a limited amount of time. I was like, yeah, you can play 20 minutes a game if the DA thing doesn't work out. I think it will be more of a platoon situation at center right now. Kevin and I, when they were trying to figure out the ABCs of the Kevin Durant implementation, we wanted to get to RST and be like, play him at the 5, but they just couldn't get there yet. I think we're going to see some of that. If the Bol Bol thing works out, we'll see some of him at the 5. If the Metu thing works out, we'll see some of him at the 5. I think that just as much as we're talking about things not being absolutely cemented at that 5th spot and something that we were writing about in ArizonaSports.com and we can continue to write about. We're just going to have to write about it in a different way now with a couple of new names. But the rotation at center now is going to be pretty interesting because Nurkic is going to play maybe 60 games. You're going to have a lot without him, and you're going to be able to see who else fits in there and what else works. And there's not there's a reliability aspect there that is concerning for sure. But at the same time, you put the options in place a couple months ago. Conveniently enough, Wolk.
Wolk.
No, that was good right there.
Wolk is a good idea.
If I have to go to break quickly, I just
had
call us Wolk.
12:38 as the over-under on when I first
so
said
good
something
right
dumb into a microphone after a really big trade happened. And the under hit, everyone. Cash your tickets.
Okay, so what's the best thing about this trade as you two see it? What is it, Cap?
You mentioned the toughness with Nurk, and to kind of bounce off Kellen's point too, Nasir Little is kind of like an OG light where you could play him and basically he could be an undersized 5, and then that puts less pressure on KD to defend 5s and keep KD at the 4. So I think versatility, they have options. They still have they add physicality with Nurk, kind of like the Clippers use Zubac. Like that's a really good example of just like, hey, go hit people for 20 minutes.
Yep.
Set a tone, set screens.
And I like that.
Yeah. And yeah, you might get picked on a little bit on defense, but we can still play you in spots in the playoffs. So I like versatility, I guess, is the big theme for me if I want to find something good about this.
And what about you, Killer?
To go off the versatility thing and expand on that with Kevin, over 2 threes a game for Jusuf Nurkic quietly last year and shot 36% on them. He wasn't that bad, and the form and everything that I was watching over the last week looked pretty good to me. So I think that that's an element where they can at least explore that. Even with other rim-rolling centers like a JaVale McGee, like a Jock Landale, like a Bismack Biyombo, there were times, Kevin, where we were watching games in the last couple of years when DeAndre wasn't playing. We're like, man, they seem to have a lot of space around right now. There seems to just be a lot more space and like free-flowing activity to their offense, and it's unfair, of course, to put all of that on DeAndre, and that's not what I'm saying. But again, to go back to the addition by subtraction thing, I think there's going to be more lanes and avenues for them to go inside now, and Nurkic popping at times on picks will be a welcome addition in there. And then some of the other pieces that they'll use, Eubanks doesn't really take threes. Maybe he does more this year, but certainly that's where Metu can factor in. But
Grayson Allen is good from beyond the arc, correct?
Yeah, that's another guy on the wing that you put right next to Yuta and Eric Gordon and Damian Lee as you had another shooter to add. Yeah, so there are pieces there, and there are versatile pieces there. And one versatile part that got under the radar that I wrote about on the site is that DeAndre rarely played Wolf at the level of the screen. So the screener comes and you're right there to cut him off. Like, no, Damian Lillard, you're not going anywhere. You're not shooting from 30 feet. Pass it elsewhere. They rarely ever did that with DeAndre, and that was one of the great endless debates, of course. Is that on DeAndre's lack of ability there, or is it on the coaching staff not wanting to use that type of scheme? We know Frank Vogel likes to get versatile with his schemes. I think he will be. Look, Nurkic is not nearly the athlete DeAndre is, so less of that. But when Nurkic is off the floor defensively, they're going to be able to do a lot more creative stuff, I think.
All right, that's what the Suns are getting back in this trade. And again, if you're just joining us, Damian Lillard to Milwaukee, Drew Holiday, Deandre Ayton to Monty Kamara, a 29 unprotected Milwaukee first and unprotected Milwaukee swap rights in 28 and 30, all to Portland. The Suns get Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. So that's what the Suns are getting. What about what they just gave up? DeAndre Ayton, no longer a Sun. We'll go into the potential that he finally hits his potential in Portland next. It's Wolf and Luke, Kellen Olson and Kevin Zimmerman in here with us as well on Arizona Sports, the local sports leader.
DA is done as a Sun.
DeAndre Ayton has been traded. The Portland Trail Blazers are trading Damian Lillard to the Milwaukee Bucks as a part of a 3-team deal. Portland is going to receive Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Tumani Kamara, Milwaukee's 2029 unprotected first-round draft pick, and unprotected Milwaukee swap rights in 2028 and 2030. The Suns will also receive Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson.
What's next for the Suns? Keep it on Arizona Sports 98.7 and the Arizona Sports app for Suns breaking news.
Hi, it's Dieter Dan here with Wayne from AMCO.
Hey, Dan.
Wayne, can you believe it is already back to school season?
I know, right? Time really flies. But what's even more important is making sure that our cars are ready for the daily grind.
Well, absolutely. That's why I took my car to the local AMCO. They made sure everything was running smoothly before the school year kicked off.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, well, they provided me a complete inspection, checking the vital components, including the transmission. They even offer back-to-school specials.
Did they find any issues with it?
Luckily, they didn't, but recommended preventative maintenance to keep my car in tip-top shape, of course. And then you guys really do care about customer safety, don't you?
We do, Dan. We want our customers' cars to be reliable, especially with all of the school runs and activities they do. Everyone should take their car to AMCO. We have experienced technicians, payment plans if needed, and offer a nationwide warranty.
Well, there you go. Get your car back to school ready. Google AMCO for your nearest location. That's AMCO, AAMCO. Transmissions, and a whole lot more.
Hey, sports fans, step your game up by shopping at Waltz. Waltz has got the inventory you need, including 2 new speaker brands, KLH and Definitive Technologies, that will blow you away. They'll make you feel like you're sitting on the sidelines without ever leaving your couch. Visit their showroom off the I-10 in Warner, or just give them a call. And remember, drop my name, Dan Bickley, and you are going to get a 3-year warranty for free. Shop local, Waltz.com.
Is your dog a mystery to you? You're not alone. You're probably wondering, what's their breed mix? Do they have relatives nearby? Why do they look and behave the way they do? Are they a carrier or at risk for genetic health conditions? It's time to end these guessing games and get the answers with an Embark Dog DNA test. Embark screens over 250 genetic health risks across 350 breeds. Embark also has the world's first relative finder to connect with your pup's relatives. What's cuter than a furry family reunion? In less than 30 seconds, Embark Swab collects enough saliva to analyze over 230,000 genetic markers, all from the comfort of your own home. Who knew your dog's drool contains so much incredible information? For Embark, it's not just about science. It's about giving you the insights to know your pup on a whole new level. Go to EmbarkVet.com today and get free shipping and save on your dog DNA test. That's EmbarkVet.com.
The future of joint pain relief is here. It's QC Kinetics, Advanced Regenerative Medicine. This is amazing stuff. If you've been told more steroids or surgery are your only options, don't be so fast. Get a second opinion and learn more about how you can harness your own body's healing agents to attack that joint pain. Now, we're talking lasting relief. QC Kinetics doesn't mask the pain. These treatments go to the very root of the problem, using concentrated healing properties placed directly in your joint to restore and repair that damaged tissue. Imagine living your life this fall with no more pain in your knees, your hips, your shoulder, your back, with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Listen, life is about motion, and QC Kinetics is giving people their lives back with these all-natural treatments. QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. Call QC Kinetics now, with clinics in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Peoria, and Chandler. 602-837-PAIN. That's 602-837-PAIN. 602-837-PAIN.
Number one is now the only one. Good afternoon, I'm Eric Ruby. The latest from the Arizona Sports Desk, presented by Parker & Sons Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electrical. After the Suns reportedly traded Deandre Ayton to the Portland Trail Blazers as part of a massive three-team deal that saw Damian Lillard end up in Milwaukee, Devin Booker is now the only remaining member of the 2021 Finals team still on Phoenix's roster. Now, Book, Beal, and Durant will get to play with center Yusuf Nurkic, wings Nasir Little and Grayson Allen, along with guard Keon Johnson, who they got back in the deal. For more details on this blockbuster and Kellen Olson's latest on the Suns selling low on their former number one pick, download the Arizona Sports app for free, where you can also read about the Diamondbacks DFAing Zach Davies after another bad start. Plus, you can listen to Arizona in action right now. Fresh off a blowout win over the White Sox, the Snakes have a 3-run lead in Chicago this afternoon. Corbin Carroll had a 2-run RBI double, Tommy Pham added an RBI single, and Brandon Pfaadt got the start. Through 5 innings, he shut them out and struck out 7. You can hear the rest of this game that's in the top of the 6th with the Diamondbacks up 3-0 on ESPN 620 and the Arizona Sports app. Currently, the Snakes hold a 1-game lead over the Cubs for the second NL wild card.
Wolf and Luke, Arizona Sports, the local sports leader.
Oh boy. We were expecting to run D-backs White Sox live right now, and you can hear it over on ESPN 620. D-backs up 3-0 in the top of the 6th.
Let's go.
Instead, I'm sitting here before you reading Damian Lillard tweets on the air, or X's or posts. Okay, we got Wolf obviously here. It's Wolf and Luke. We got Kellen Olson, Kevin Zimmerman in here as well.
I'm riding in the sidecar.
Well, you're
in the studio.
Your chair is lower than it usually is.
I'm like the guy riding in the sidecar.
Well, here's the Damian Lillard tweet from 5 minutes ago. The casuals won't be addressed, but the Trailblazers fans and city of Portland that I love truly will be, and they will be addressed truthfully. Stay tuned. Excited for my next chapter at Bucks.
Is it going to be a rap bar? Is it going to be...
I mean, he just put out his new video like a couple days ago, didn't he?
Reproduce that. I don't know.
Yeah, remix time right here. All right, let's have the conversation that, I don't know what the percentage is, 40% of the Suns fans are having right now. How could they possibly give up on Deandre Ayton? So, Kevin, I'm going to start with you this time. What are the odds in your mind? You were talking about DeAndre Ayton. You guys are going to hear about it more than anybody on X. If he goes off and takes off in Portland, you two specifically, who had nothing to do with this trade, will be blamed for it on social media.
Yes. I looked at the end of this season, I looked back at this guy, Kellen Olson, wrote basically why you should take Luka over DeAndre Ayton back in 2018 math years. And everything, all of the red flags that were in that column were the exact same red flags that you saw this past year. Like, nothing has changed. That is not to say he did not get immensely better, learned defensive schemes, learned what his teammates were doing, was very efficient, obviously, as an offensive player. But the red flags were still there. And I think from when you talk about just generally consistency, the only period we didn't see inconsistency was the run to the 2021 finals. And that's a really small, important block of time. But other than that, if you didn't see it, at some point you get tired of it. And I think that's where the Suns found themselves. It's like, we can't trust that player to find that player again.
I think ultimately where I landed and what we're talking about now is most of what I wrote about on the site. I'm often someone where I come on these shows and I get asked a question and I like to keep it somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's like a clear yes, no, black and white thing, but I really do think this is the case where it's black and white. The Suns are either going to be much better without Deandre Ayton or much worse, and I don't think it's going to be any other way. And by default, either Deandre Ayton is going to be more or less the same inconsistent player in Portland, or he's going to thrive in a different environment and he's not going to become the Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing unrealistic comp that was coming out on draft day, but he'll become like a defensive player of the year candidate, a guy who makes a couple all defense teams, a guy who makes a couple all-star teams. And it's crazy because when we were doing these podcasts coming into the last regular season, Kevin, I was like, yeah, he's a top 5 center in the league. He's right about there. That's where I had him now, and now I probably wouldn't have him. I did a list the other day, just where would I rank Nurkic? Where would I rank Deandre? I didn't have Deandre in the top 15 because he regressed so much.
The Athletic had him 18th a month ago.
Yeah, in the regular season, but especially in the playoffs. I think we're so far gone from that series, and so much has happened since then that I think we're kind of forgetting, and we just, in our head, just remember Jokic going nuts. And just kind of forget all of those moments that Deandre had over the course of those games. I wrote going into that game, I believe game 3 in Phoenix, this is the biggest game in Deandre's career because all of these conversations you guys have been having on the show for years now, we saw them on inside the NBA. We were seeing them everywhere about his effort, his engagement, his consistency. And it's really fascinating because even someone like me who has been, like Kevin said, I've been talking about these red flags and concerns since 2017. It's been 6 years now.
Yeah.
I've been talking about them, but at the same time, I gotta sit here and say there could be a chance we see that guy, but it's just crazy to think we got to this point when the way I put it in the story is he was 22 years old making his playoff debut, and he played like that in the 2021 run. He was 22 in his playoff debut playing at that kind of level. And then even going back to 2022, the first round, the offense, it seemed like the offensive thing kind of clicked for him. It felt like we were there, but
once again,
it never clicked.
He also got paid, right? He also got paid, and that's something you've got to take into consideration right now based on what we see. The thing I'm fascinated with is Drew Holiday and how Drew Holiday is going to get along if he does stay up there, important with Deandre Ayton. Once again, I think, listen, it's my belief, you guys know this, I love D.A. As a human being, just listening to him, this is a guy that is, he strikes me as being a really, really good guy. A guy who doesn't have a malicious bone maybe in his body, and maybe that's the problem right now. But I expect nothing different out of Deandre Ayton going up to Portland. Nothing different. I expect him to be who he is. Rarely are you ever going to change. If you have a hard time tapping into the intensity tree, the rage tree, as I like to talk about it and call it, if you have a hard time doing that, typically something drastic has got to happen in your life for you to do that. And I certainly don't want anything drastic to happen to Deandre Ayton. But to me, once again, he's going to be the same guy going up there, period, that he was here. He's a mad king.
To your point, I always said, because we went to Arizona, we watched all of his college games before he got drafted. The only game you can really point at was the game they went up. I think they played Oregon at Oregon.
The Sean Miller game.
Sean Miller had been removed from the team during the whole ESPN scandal that was involving DA, and that was the only time I saw him play pissed off. And he had an awesome game. He picked up a loose ball and dribbled it 3/4 of the court, dunked it in transition. It was that's the athleticism, that's the anger and all that stuff. And there was a reason for that, and it was just hard. You never saw him replicate that on a even monthly basis, Yeah,
and you can cite, I can still cite 3 regular seasons ago. There was a road trip, and it started in Memphis, and it included, he had a reverse one-handed dunk when he went under the baseline, and was it looked like actual dominating. And it was a 4-game stretch, and I remember writing at the end of the 4th game, and my recap in the headline, dominating is here. we saw it. But it's just the reason why you can remember so easily where these moments happen and why, like, the specificity you can call onto is the reason why we're, like, all here having this sort of conversation. But Luke, to ask you something, I think the interesting part, one of the 500 interesting parts about this is that the discussions that we had here in the Valley for so many times on Twitter and just the various ways those conversations would go, and the people that were more on the side of Ayton being underutilized, he goes to Portland and he's not necessarily the man, but he's the man in terms of NBA experience there. I think it's Scoot Henderson's franchise going forward, but I think Drew will be on the move here. So it'll not be DeAndre's team, but they are going to run the offense just about around him.
Yeah.
So he is going to be not in a winning environment necessarily, but an environment where a team is going to look to maximize him in every single sense. And I think that's part of the reason why the writing was on the wall with this trade, especially with KD's arrival, is that there just wasn't really ever going to be an offensive role for him unless he was okay with that 2021 run and that kind of role, because that was the thing that went under the radar when Chris Paul got here. I remember in the 10, 15 games, we had one podcast where I was telling you, I was like, I think Chris Paul is willing to lose regular season games right now just to see this DeAndre Ayton thing out. Because he was forcing the ball to him like crazy. And I was like, he was trying to figure out what he had in him, and then he took on that smaller role. But that's like calling back flashbacks, Luke. 3 seasons ago, going into the 2021 run, I linked to it in the column. I wrote a story where I was like, if the Suns have these concerns about DeAndre and all these brain farts show up in the playoffs again, they got to ask themselves if they can take this risk again in another year of contention. It took 3 years later for that to come up, but it did. I asked you a question and then rambled for 2 minutes.
I don't think you asked the question, but that's great because we're going to break anyway. So if you have the question, ask it when we come back. Because when we come back, Kevin and Kellen are going to stick around for one more segment, and we're going to get deeper into why exactly this trade is happening now, just a few days before media day, just a few weeks before the start of the season. Did it have to happen now? Could it have happened a year from now? Could they have gotten more? All that next. It's Wolf and Luke on Arizona Sports, the local sports leader.
The DeAndre Ayton era in Phoenix is over.
DeAndre Ayton has been traded.
And I know Gambo's been saying for a few days now, if Portland trades Damian Lillard, look at the Suns going after Yusuf Nurkic. So that part of it's not a shock. But still, there is the shock value that it just happened. It actually has happened. DeAndre Ayton's not a Phoenix Sun anymore.
Is another Gambo bomb about to drop? Gambo is working his sources to bring you any legit Suns news in the Ayton aftermath on Arizona Sports 98.7 and the Arizona Sports app.
Newsflash, summers are hot in Arizona. Well, my friends at Window World have a cure for those hot rooms in your house. Solar Zone Sun Shield sliding windows. These amazing windows have a solar heat gain coefficient rating of 0.14, which is window nerd talk for the best heat-resistant glass available. Here's the best part. Local husband and wife owners Jim and Tony Ballard are offering 7 of these large premium quality Solar Zone Sun Shield sliding windows installed, tax included, for only $4,927. Window World is offering their lowest price up front without any gimmicks or hassles. And every Window World window comes with a true lifetime guarantee. Call for details or schedule online at windowworldphoenix.com. That's windowworldphoenix.com. Window World, simply the best for definitely less.
When making important life decisions about your financial future or insurance needs, it's important to work with people you trust. That's why at Farm Bureau Financial Services, we don't rely on algorithms, bots, or auto-generated answers. We get to know you so we can help you get the right coverage and make smart financial decisions. We're the people who provide insurance and financial planning all in one place. Find a Farm Bureau agent or advisor at fbfs.com/protect. It's your future. Let's protect it.
Catch head coach Greg Powers in Sun Devil hockey for the 2023-24 season at Mullet Arena. The Sun Devils host 26 games, including marquee matchups against Denver, Providence, and Alaska Fairbanks. The puck drops and the action begins Friday, October 13th against Merrimack for a 2-game series. Be sure to secure your seats by calling 480-965-5812 or go online to sundeviltickets.com. Sun Devil hockey, onward to victory.
Sun Devil football returns to Mountain America Stadium to take on the Coach Prime-led Colorado Buffaloes Saturday, October 7th for ASU's Hall of Fame game. An incredible class of Sun Devil legends will be honored at halftime for their induction into the Sun Devil Athletics Hall of Fame, including Phoenix area product and NFL veteran Sean McDonough. Get your ASU Colorado tickets today by calling 480-727-0000 or go online to sundeviltickets.com.
At aimyourdigital.com, we'll help you target the right audience, build your leads, and crush your quota. Take your business to the next level. Our digital marketing strategies help grow awareness of your product or service, all while building trust in your business. Our approach involves leveraging multiple tools and strategies to deliver exceptional results that are customized to your unique business needs. Don't wait to run out of sales leads. Keep your business growing. Get started with aimyourdigital.com today.
Hey everybody, it's Dave Burns. Well, Gambo said it was coming, and today it happened. Deandre Ayton traded to the Portland Trailblazers in a massive NBA blockbuster. So many questions to ask, starting with, did the Phoenix Suns get better as a basketball team today? We'll talk about that and everything about DA at straight up 2 o'clock here on the Burns and Gambo Show.
Yeah, again, in case you're just joining us, here are the details of the trade. Milwaukee gets Damian Lillard. Portland gets Drew Holiday, Deandre Ayton, Toumani Camara, a 2029 unprotected first-round pick from Milwaukee, and unprotected swap rights from Milwaukee in 28 and 30. The Phoenix Suns get Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. So they get those four for Deandre Ayton and Toumani Camara. Toumani Camara, who never actually played a game as not an actual regular season game as a member of the Phoenix Suns. Kellen Olson and Kevin Zimmerman are here for one more segment before they go write 75 stories for ArizonaSports.com. So I'm going to just kind of go along with what Dave Burns just said right there. And Kellen, I'll start with you. Are the Phoenix Suns better right now than they were, an hour and a half ago when none of this was happening?
Yeah.
All right. Same question to you, Kevin, but in reverse. Are the Phoenix Suns not worse? No, are they better here now after making this trade?
Yeah, because, I'll give a little more than Kellen did.
Just give me 2 syllables. That's all we need. At least more than 1 syllable. Better. Okay. The move to do this now, to trade Deandre Ayton, how much of this is going to be measured in terms of success based on what he does in Portland? You know what I mean? Like, let's say the Suns make it to the NBA Finals, but they don't win at all, but DA has that breakout year in Portland. I mean, if you're a Suns fan, and we're going to take calls from Suns fans here in about 10 minutes, it's going to be the ultimate listeners-only meeting. Wolf, Deandre Ayton getting traded, but Kevin, if they end up, they go deep, they don't win at all, let's say, but DA takes off. I mean, how much is this a success or a failure?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Cardinals and discussion about tanking and all that stuff where there are variables and factors that are on other teams, right? So I think it will be a huge discussion if DA is having a great season. He's looking alert, engaged every night, and then the Suns go into the playoffs and, Nurk's attacked by a certain team, and then they don't really have a backup who's very good, and then they get bullied and they try bull, and Jokic just throws a hip in him, gets him out of the way, and they just get run out in the conference semifinals again. If those two things happen, then definitely it's going to be a what if. It's going to be a what did you do? Why did we do this? So it's going to be fascinating from that, because I think that's just eyes are going to be on Portland from Suns fans just wondering about that, especially if the Suns have hiccups as they get this very, very new team going and there's speed bumps and that kind of thing.
Kevin, permission to do the thing? Can I do the thing?
Yeah, I don't know what this is, but it's their show.
If you don't know what it is,
can I do the thing?
I think he's going to do a thing, yeah.
But you're the lead editor. I'm just the editor. You
I think
lead.
he's going to rant. I'm not
following.
Sure.
Okay. So all this conversation about how DeAndre Ayton under Frank Vogel, how much you could untap there.
Wolf wants to see that still.
As you should. I was curious as well.
Yeah. I was very curious.
Big question coming out of this trade. Do the Suns have a defense that can win a championship? Offense, we ain't worried about it. Certainly ain't worried about it. Defense, are we worried about it? If you had to have a head coach to build a defense that's good enough, without someone who is a traditional defensive anchor, like everyone is a defensive anchor when they're a center, right? But
Magic.
I don't think that that's Nurkic necessarily. I think you have to build the proper scheme around him. That sounds complicated. It sounds like you need the right guy for the job. Frank Vogel is the right guy for the job.
Yeah, I don't think it's DeAndre Ayton either.
Well, it was when you got the most out of him, or not even the most out of him, just like 70% out of him.
Yeah, I just honestly, his lack of using force so often, to me, it just it's a deal killer when you talk about this team becoming better defensively because of DA. Yeah. I honestly, the intensity level or the lack thereof, I wanted to see, the only question I had is, could Frank Vogel get that out of him? Could he reach this guy? So much of coaching is about reaching somebody so you can teach somebody. Could he reach DeAndre Ayton to get him to see, what are you doing? Your lack of consistency in regard to effort is stunning. And that to me, I honestly right now, you give me a guy who's 290 pounds that'll use his body. Okay, he might break down. Maybe he's not a great defender in terms of moving his feet, but at least there'll be some force in the middle for the Suns.
The point of differentiation here, Wolf, is that someone like DeAndre Ayton, we learned this during the run, and it had less to do with the run, honestly, and how great he was playing, but DeAndre is so mobile, agile, versatile, long, humongous, all those things put together that what happens in the postseason is like someone like Jared Vanderbilt, someone we talk about a lot on the podcast, Kevin, where Jared Vanderbilt in the regular season, great. But we didn't know in the playoffs when you play a guy who doesn't shoot, how is it going to look? It looked pretty great for the Lakers. It looked like it there. It didn't look great before that. But we talk about these types of players who the longer you get into the season, the more high-level basketball you play, can they stay on the floor? And that's the big difference here is that can Yusuf Nurkic be a viable option for you when you get to the conference finals, when you get to the NBA finals? I'm not sold on that, and I was always sold with that on DeAndre. He always had the ability to hang in those environments from that perspective. I understand that from a quality of play perspective, it was rough last year. It was really rough. But when you were worried about like Luka Doncic getting him on an island and switching him like he would do to any center in the league, you were actually fine with that because DeAndre could handle that just like he had so many times in the past. Nurkic is someone, like Kevin is saying, defenses can hunt, and they're going to have to figure out how to pivot from that if they need to necessarily, and that's one of the elements here throughout the course of the season that we're going to have to see is that if Nurkic is healthy for the postseason, how viable is he in the long term, and are we talking about a different option there later in the postseason? You never had to really go there with DeAndre until his play fell off so much that after Game 5 in Denver, you and I were on the podcast being like, do they just play Jock Landale? Do they just start Jock Landale at this point? Like, it's you got to go back to both sides with this whole thing for sure.
It's really fascinating to me once again because you're talking a lot of schematics, and I get that. Schematics, it's important. There's no doubt about it. But skulls matter too.
Violence, as Monty Austin-Ford calls it.
No, I'm just saying schematics and skulls because the skulls are people, and those people go out and say things. Sometimes they don't say things. They do things, and sometimes they don't do things. And they can have an awful lot of impact, again, not just on themselves, but on their entire team.
Well,
that's why you've got to really consider the big picture here in regard to just how poorly was the morale inside that locker room. How was it? What was it like? Did Devin Booker, by the way, want DeAndre Ayton out?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to know. Somebody answer that question, and if he did, I'm okay with it.
Before we let you guys go, because you really do have a lot of writing to do. I don't know if anybody's told you this, but I'm going to ask you each here before we go to break.
Don't know what time it is and won't know for a while.
And Kevin, I'm going to start with you. And this is a tough one to ask up against the break. I get that. But how are you going to remember the DeAndre Ayton era in Phoenix now that it's officially over?
Oh, man.
Well, it ends the same way it started, right? Like a debate and a discussion still being held on if these things are going to come to reality.
Well, since it's over, my sentence would be falling short of potential. I think they drafted him. I knew he was a project. He came a long way, especially his rookie second year. But again, those red flags never have gone away. And I think when you look at that athlete, even his skill set, I mean, it's disappointing he didn't. I think he can do more, and we'll see if he can do more in Portland.
Luke, doesn't make you look back on 2018 even more now that he's been traded?
You know, what ultimately swayed me to be really worried about them making that pick when they made it was watching a little bit of Luka, hearing some of the national stuff of like, hey, you know, outside of Arizona, people are saying DA is not the number one pick. But honestly, it was you two. And Kellen was on my show a lot because he was here at nights too. And we would come on. It was two people who went to U of A and watched every U of A game being like, yeah. Because usually it's like, yeah, this guy went to my college. This guy's unstoppable. And it wasn't just you two, but I value your opinions more than a lot of them that were like, yeah, this guy doesn't totally bring it every night. So, yeah, it does. There's no way to not think about draft night or the weeks leading up to that draft now.
But to say that at the same time, I do still think there's a case that everything did kind of work out to a certain extent. You didn't get a championship, sure, and I think you would have had way more opportunities at a championship with a Luka Booker backcourt, like we were saying back in 2017 even. But they've been pretty darn great the last 3 years, and it's worked out pretty well regardless. Yeah, even with all of that and like a mistake like that happening with the top overall pick, I still think it worked out pretty well, yeah.
For me, you know what I'm going to remember about Deandre Ayton and this era? Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah. That probably sums it up better than any other way you could sum it up. Kevin, thanks for doing this. We're going to read all your stuff on Arizona Sports. I guarantee you I'm going to read it all for the show tomorrow. So get out there and write.
Oh, thank you, sir.
We'll do. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Wolf.
602-260-9870. It's your turn next. You want to talk about a listeners-only meeting? We weren't even supposed to be doing a show right now, Wolf. Want to hear from the callers. I'm pretty sure Suns fans have an opinion on this one way or the other. How do you feel now that Deandre Ayton has been traded to the Portland Trail Blazers, and how do you feel about what the Suns just got back? That's next. 602-260-9870. It's Wolf and Luke on Arizona Sports, the local sports leader.